On December 4, 1872, Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife and their 2-year-old daughter, along with 4 other crew members, set sail on a brigantine named the Mary Celeste from New York to Genoa, Italy. They were transporting a cargo of industrial alcohol. Their journey began like any other. They bid farewell to their families, promising a swift return. But little did they know that their ship would soon be found without a single soul on board, becoming one of the greatest unsolved mysteries at sea. The Mary Celeste was built in 1861 and was known for its sturdy build and reliability. It was a vessel accustomed to braving the Atlantic's wrath, carrying valuable cargo across the vast ocean. The journey from New York to Genoa was a well-traveled route. However, this voyage would take a turn into the realm of the unknown. As the ship sailed, anticipation for its arrival in Italy grew. But days turned into weeks, and the Mary Celeste was long overdue. On December, after nearly 3 weeks at sea, it was spotted off the Portuguese coast. But it wasn't the sight of a ship that should have been there. The ship was unmanned, adrift, and clearly abandoned. It was immediately reported to the local authorities. The first to respond was the captain of the nearby ship, believing it could be a case of piracy. But as he approached the Mary Celeste, what he found defied all expectations. There was no sign of a struggle, no indication of a pirate attack. Everything was in order, yet there was no crew in sight. The logbook was still on deck and revealed that the last entry had been made on December, suggesting that everything was fine at that point. All provisions for the crew were still present, implying that they had not left due to hunger or thirst. Even the ship's cat was still on board. This ghostly scenario raised more questions than answers. Where could the crew be? Had they jumped ship willingly? Were they victims of foul play, or had something more sinister struck them? When the ship reached Gibraltar, a thorough search was conducted. The only person found was 2-year-old Sophia Briggs. In her crib, she was unharmed, indicating that whatever had happened, it hadn't involved any immediate threat to her. She was taken off the ship and placed under the care of officials who tried to piece together the mystery. Given that she was unharmed, the authorities initially believed that her parents had left her behind, probably thinking someone else would take care of her. However, when they went back to the ship to pick up the child, they found out that her mother's cabin was locked from the inside. To make things even more puzzling, a half-written letter was discovered addressed to a Mer Garland in Genoa. It spoke about the health of Mrs. Briggs, implying that the family had not intended to abandon their daughter. Furthermore, the ship's papers, which would have been discarded if the crew had planned to abandon the vessel, were still on board. These findings ruled out the possibility of voluntary abandonment. Weeks passed, but the whereabouts of the missing crew remained a mystery. Theories began to emerge, each more speculative than the last. Some suggested that the crew had encountered pirates, while others believed that the ship had been captured by Confederate forces seeking to disrupt trade during the Civil War. Even though the Mary Celeste had sailed under the American flag, it was carrying a valuable cargo that could have made it a target. The most intriguing theory was that the crew had been taken by a giant squid. At that time, tales of these colossal creatures were popular, and although there was no concrete evidence to support this claim, it served as a captivating explanation for the disappearance of the entire crew. One of the ship's officers, Thomas Nickerson, had previously recounted an encounter with a giant squid while working on another vessel. He described how the creature had attacked, leaving behind a trail of carnage and drawing parallels to the mysterious case. Another officer on the Mary Celeste, Charles W. Worth, also hinted at such an occurrence in his testimony, further fueling speculation about their fate. Squids were known to be aggressive and capable of dragging prey to the depths, potentially offering a plausible explanation for the missing crew. However, as time went on, doubts about the squid theory arose. Experts pointed out that despite the absence of the crew, there was no damage to the ship's rigging or sails, nor were there any signs of a struggle, which would have been expected if a giant squid had been involved. If a large creature had climbed onto the ship, it wouldn't have been able to do so without damaging the rigging. Also, given the size of squids, it seemed unlikely that they could have pulled the heavy anchor. Yet they had apparently sailed for about 160 kilometers before being discovered, which was further perplexing. Additionally, if a squid had attacked and dragged the men into the water, why wasn't anyone injured? Finally, if the squid had consumed the crew, why were there no traces of the remains in the cargo hold? These inconsistencies raised questions about whether the squid theory held up. Was there some other explanation for the fate of the Mary Celeste and her crew? As the investigation continued, attention shifted to the possibility of foul play. Could there have been a mutiny or an act of violence among the crew? This theory was supported by the fact that the ship had valuable cargo and life insurance for the crew, which could have tempted someone to harm the others. However, this didn't explain why the ship had been left unmanned. It would make more sense for the perpetrators to flee rather than leave the scene of the crime. Moreover, there was no evidence of a struggle, suggesting that if there had been foul play, it might have occurred while the ship was docked in New York. Another intriguing aspect of the case was the behavior of the ship's captain, Benjamin Briggs. Before the voyage, he had taken out life insurance for himself, his wife, and his daughter, a move that seemed to indicate a premonition of disaster. His decision to embark on the trip despite an ongoing cholera epidemic, putting his young child at risk, puzzled many. Such actions were uncharacteristic of a responsible father. Could it be that the captain knew something about the fate of the ship that we don't? Did he have a secret that drove him to take extreme measures to protect his daughter's future? Or was he simply a man driven to despair by the thought of leaving his family behind? For months on end, a few years after the incident, the Mary Celeste was finally located. It had drifted to the coast of France and was remarkably still intact. It was towed back to New York, where it underwent a thorough inspection to uncover any clues about the missing crew. The ship's surgeon, Dr. Thomas Speakman, examined the hull for signs of a struggle or damage, but found none. He concluded that whatever had happened to the crew, it must have occurred within the first few days of the voyage. But what could have caused the entire crew to disappear without a trace? In the end, no definitive answers were found. The Mary Celeste and its crew remained an enigma. The ship was sold and renamed, continuing to sail the seas, but the shadow of its mysterious past lingered. Over the years, various theories emerged, but none could be proven beyond doubt. The Great Sea Mystery captivated the public imagination and inspired countless tales and legends. Was it a pirate attack, a mutiny, the work of a crazed killer, or something more fantastical like a giant squid or paranormal intervention? The truth remains elusive. The Mary Celeste stands as a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lie beneath the waves. The disappearance of her crew continues to baffle and intrigue, leaving us to ponder the unknown. Was it a pirate attack, a mutiny, the work of a crazed killer, or something more fantastical like a giant squid or paranormal intervention? The truth remains elusive, lost to the depths of the ocean. As we continue to explore the depths of our planet's history, we're sure to encounter more mysteries that challenge our understanding. From ancient artifacts to unexplained phenomena, the world is filled with puzzles that have yet to be solved. So what are some of the other great mysteries that have captured your curiosity? Share your thoughts and let's delve deeper into the unknown together.